All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a huge question in programming today. How do we actually organize all our data? We'll be looking at two of the most common tools every programmer has in their back pocket to figure this out. Have you ever tried to organize, well, anything? A bookshelf, your music playlists, even just a simple grocery list? We're always trying to put collections of things in some kind of order. It's just something we all do.
And believe it or not, that's exactly what programming is all about. Just, with data instead of groceries. We're constantly needing smart ways to store and handle groups of information. Think about a list of high scores in a game, or product prices on a website, or even just names in your phone's contact list.
So, to solve this big organization problem, we've got two main tools at our disposal, the array and the array list. Now, they sound super similar, right? But trust me, picking the right one can completely change how your code works. So let's dive in and really break them down.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the OG, the classic, the array. I always picture it as that one family member who's incredibly organized, but also kind of strict, a little rigid. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like an egg carton. Seriously, an egg carton has a set number of spots, right? Usually 12. You can't just magically add a 13th spot. And each spot is numbered. And you're really only supposed to put eggs in there. You wouldn't just toss an apple in. That, right there, is an array in a nutshell.
Okay, so for the more formal definition, the two big things you have to remember are same data type and fixed size. Once you decide how big that array is going to be, that's it. It is set in stone.
So, how do you actually use one of these things? It's really just a simple three-step dance. First, you declare it. You basically say, hey, I want an array for this type of thing. Second, you initialize it. That's when you lock in its size. And third, you just start putting your stuff into those numbered slots, which we call indices.
But here's the thing, and this is super, super important, especially if you're just starting out. The numbering does not start at 1 like a normal person would count. Nope. It starts at 0. So if you have an array with 10 slots, they're numbered 0 all the way to 9. This is a classic trap that gets almost everyone at first.
All right, so we get the basic idea, but how do we actually work with it? In the real world. Let's check out a couple of its key features.
So every single array has this really useful little thing called .length. Now be careful, it doesn't tell you how many items you've put in yet. It tells you the total number of slots it can hold. It's the total capacity. So for our egg carton, the length would just be 12. Simple as that.
Okay, a single list is great and all, but what about when your data looks more like a grid? Like a spreadsheet with rows and columns? Or maybe a chessboard or a tic-tac-toe board? How in the world do you handle that?
Well, here's the really cool solution, a multi-dimensional array. And it's simpler than it sounds. Just think of it as an array of arrays. So each slot in your main array doesn't hold a single item. It holds another whole array. This is exactly how you build things like grids, tables, and all sorts of more complex layouts. So, arrays are awesome. They're super fast, really efficient. But they have this one huge Achilles heel. What happens when you have no idea how many items you're going to need? Like you're making a to-do list for the day. Are you going to have 5 things to do or 50? Suddenly, that whole fixed size thing becomes a massive headache. And that problem, my friends, is exactly why our second tool was invented. Let's talk about the array list.
So if our array is that rigid egg carton, the array list is like a magical shopping bag. It just stretches. You can keep throwing things in, and it just gets bigger to hold them all. You never have to decide on the size beforehand.
The key word here is dynamic. What's really happening under the hood is pretty clever. It's actually using a regular array, but when that array gets full, the array list automatically does all the dirty work for you. It creates a brand new, bigger array, copies all your old stuff over, and you don't have to think about a thing. It's magic.
And all this flexibility comes with a bunch of super handy built-in tools, which we call methods. You can easily .add something new, get an item from a certain spot, remove something you don't need anymore, and use .size to see exactly how many things are in there right now. Now, there is one technical thing you gotta know. Arrays are pretty basic, in a good way. They can hold simple data, like a plain number or a single letter. We call these primitives. Array lists, though, they're a little fancier. They can only hold what we call objects, which are more complex containers for data, like a string of text.
All right, we've met our two contenders. Now it's time for the main event, the head-to-head showdown, array versus array list. Let's figure out when to use which. This lays it all out pretty clearly. First up, size. Array is fixed or static. Array list is flexible or dynamic. Easy enough. Then, speed. Because they're so simple, arrays are generally faster. There's less overhead. Dimensions. Arrays can do those cool multi-dimensional grids we talked about, but array lists are just single, one-dimensional lists. And finally, data types. Arrays can handle both the simple stuff, primitives, and objects. Array lists, they're for objects only.
So let's translate that into some straight-up advice. When should you use an array? Well, use an array when you know the size of your list up front, and it's never going to change. Or when performance is absolutely critical and you need every last drop of speed. And of course, if you need to build a grid.
And when do you grab an array list? Simple. Use it when you have no idea how big your list will get. Use it when you know you're going to be adding and deleting items constantly. Or, honestly, when you just want the convenience of all those helpful built-in methods.
And that's pretty much the whole story. You've got the rigid, super fast egg carton versus the flexible, super convenient shopping bag. They're both absolutely essential, and now you know the secret of when to use each one. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with first?